Do you need to release the screen? There we go. Sorry guys, I was clicking. Get going here. Hey, hi. My name's Kim Wright, and tonight we're going to talk a little bit about factory farms. I noticed on the list of participants there's folks who have lots of real-world experience, so hopefully we'll all learn something from hearing from folks who live and unfortunately breathe this issue. Midwest Environmental Advocates is a nonprofit environmental law center. We provide legal and technical services to citizens, but this citizen voices matter, and they matter now more than ever. I've vowed to toss in every presentation I give just this really quick history to remind us of what we've lost. Our Department of Natural Resources was independent for nearly 70 years. Aldo Leopold told the legislature we needed to be managing our natural heritage with science, not the short cycle of politics. Tommy Thompson abolished the independence of the DNR. The secretary is now directly appointed by the governor instead of hired and fired by a citizen board. Our organization was founded by a young woman who just thought that was terrible, that we lost the public intervener and the independent DNR while she was in law school, and founded our organization. I want to let you know that this isn't these problems like CAFOs and other environmental problems. It's not about red or blue. It's not about one party being better than another. It's about money overpowering science, special interests overpowering science, and what's important to citizens. So I just think it's important for us to remember that, and that we should not lose our aspiration to recover our independent DNR secretary. Just really quickly, things have gone from bad to worse under our current administration. Just enforcement of the laws is down dramatically. Here's just some clippings from newspaper stories from 2011 and a recent Milwaukee Journal Sentinel article. And that really matters. And as we get into this issue, you'll see why. In 2013, we had an all-time high, over 1 million gallons of manure so-called spilled in Wisconsin. And it's a really big issue. One of the things that we see in our work with factory farming and other issues is that as the DNR doesn't really have the resources or the autonomy for professional staff to do their jobs, that citizens have literally taken on the cost and burden of protecting public health. And I'll use one example of a recent hearing that we had to try to illustrate that. So the lingo CAFO, this is what it means. It's a term that has a legal meaning: concentrated animal feeding operations. If there is over 1,000 animal units, then one of these facilities has to have a Wisconsin pollution discharge elimination system permit, so a water pollution permit. But that's the lingo of what these things are called. I just want to draw your attention, and there's links throughout the PowerPoint, so when you go to Grassroots North Shore website, you'll be able to get some more information. And I'm sorry this isn't a very clear picture, but one of our partner organizations, Wisconsin Environment, recently released a report called The Power to Pollute. You can see in this graph that the growth of these CAFOs has been exponential over a fairly short period of time. What's frightening is during the same time, the staff at DNR has gone down at the same rate. Right now, there's 8 staff people for the whole state to implement the law by reviewing permits and by monitoring and enforcing these facilities that have proven to be, real disaster for our environment and for public health. So it's a real problem that we have so many of these without the staff. An emerging issue that you may be hearing about is the DNR and the Department of Ag, Trade, and Consumer Protection have been really pushing aerial manure spraying. And there's a permit that was just issued up in Kewaunee County that citizens are pretty worried about. The DNR started a task force a while ago, but it turns out they were breaking open meetings laws and were not allowing citizens to be on the committee, so they had to reformulate it. And there are a couple of citizens on the committee now. Industry is, as you might guess, well represented. So there's very real health effects. There's peer-reviewed studies. This is just an excerpt from a letter from the American Lung Association here in Wisconsin to DNR, DATCAP, and the Department of Health Services, specifically about this aerial spraying of manure. The University of Nebraska, if you want more information on this, has done quite a bit of research. Johns Hopkins and the Pew Foundation have done a lot of good health research generally, but also on this aerial spraying of manure. So our problems really began with something called the Livestock Facility Siting Law, which took control from local jurisdictions on being able to say where these industrial livestock facilities can be built. And I'm guessing there are quite a few people on the call who have some experience directly living near a CAFO or know what they are. And, nobody really wants to live near a CAFO, hard on every part of your life. So this was a real step backwards. And we've, of course, seen there's a bill floating around the legislature to take local control away from frac sand for frac sand mining regulation for the very same reason. No one wants to live near it. So lots of people, when this law was introduced and passed, lots of people around the state made their voices heard. There were many, many, many citizen comments about their concerns. And of course, the law passed anyway. And again, it was Jim Doyle, a Democrat, who signed this into law. So this is really not a red or blue issue. There's just a couple of examples here. This is an excerpt from a Centers for Disease Control study. So it's not just people who don't happen to like the smell of CAFOs that are bothered by these. They're very real and documented health effects. The antibiotic-resistant pathogens is a very frightening reality. I won't go through this, but just another example. This is something from Nebraska. Some of the very real health effects. And I should say that I'm going to focus more on water, but there are very serious air problems and asthma and reduced lung capacity and things like that living near CAFOs, and very little regulation of air. So this map shows where these kinds of industrial dairies are located in Wisconsin. And if you can see around Green Bay and then in the Central Sands, those are the concentrations of where these things are. And in Green Bay, there are the big processing facilities, the cheap cheese factories that need high quantities of cheap, low-quality milk, and in my opinion, low-quality milk. So this is where they are, and it's the worst place in the state. The Central Sands is there's a lot of proposed CAFOs, and that will be some of the biggest in the state, and it's pretty vulnerable area. What this map shows in those dark red and orange areas, these are counties where most of the land is covered by a nutrient management plan, which is basically what this means is these facilities that have lots and lots, as much as 100 million gallons of liquid manure a year from one facility, they mostly dump it on the ground, spread it on the ground. There are very few digesters and things like that in the state. So a lot of the county conservationists feel that we've already exceeded the carrying capacity of the land, especially in this area around Green Bay. And as you see, Door County doesn't have any CAFOs, but the waste from CAFOs is spread in Door County fields. Again, these are happening all over. They're in many counties, but the real epicenter of the dairy CAFOs is Central Sands and around the Green Bay area. You've probably been following there's a lot of problems with over irrigation in the Central Sands. It's a big potato growing region and vegetable growing region, and right now in our state legislature is a bill that would make it not possible for DNR staff to actually manage our groundwater with science, and that's by pressure of special interests and industry. This picture of Long Lake, one of the effects of this over-irrigation is a real drop in the water table. So the no wake sign there should be in water. So there are many people who've literally lost their lakes, and Little Plover River, one of those things too. I am going to talk mostly about the Green Bay area. That's where these facilities have been concentrated for the longest. And one of the real problems there is karst topography, which is very thin soils over fractured bedrock. Many studies on our groundwater that would suggest that dumping animal waste this is the last place anywhere to do it. Gordon Stevenson is retired chief of non-point runoff for DNR, and he recently spoke at a citizen organized and led health conference in Door County. And he used to be, I think he called himself the top manure cop. And just to full disclosure here, he's now on our board and is a great technical advisor for our staff. But at that conference, he highlighted that in the Central Sands, where everything runs straight through that sand, very high draining sandy soils, but also they don't have much water. One CAFO that's up for a permit right now would have 49 high capacity wells for one facility. So water use and water pollution, very big problems. This is something that later it might be worth you looking at. This Government Accountability Office report that was just released recently, it says that if we keep going the way we are, allowing agriculture to be mostly voluntary, there's very limited legal accountability for agricultural runoff. And this report said it would take us 1,000 years to meet the goals in the Clean Water Act if we keep on the course we're on. And it strongly urged more legal accountability for all ag, but these factory farms obviously are a real problem. So as I said before, one of these facilities can produce as much as 100 million gallons a year, and poured over the karst topography up in the Green Bay area, pretty serious. This river of manure here is a photo taken by a citizen scientist, citizen monitor up in the Kewaunee County area. Again, lots of people have taken on the costs and burdens. They've trained themselves as water monitors, do regular water monitoring, and the Kewaunee Cares folks have to raise money to be able to pay for lab tests, and it certainly takes time out of their busy lives. We just finished a 4-day hearing challenging a permit up in the town of Lincoln, Kewaunee County, where in the town of Lincoln, over 50% of the wells tested are unsafe for human consumption. And that's a really big deal. This is one of our clients in that case, and her son, who's not a petitioner. He's actually, I think, the chair of the town of Lincoln. And they can't wash their hands with their tap water. They can't brush their teeth. People have to watch their children very carefully to make sure their children don't get E. coli poisoning from, washing their hands in water. The people who have to live with this every single part of their lives are impacted. So the Tremmel family in the very same town had a horrible tragedy. where their little daughter had E. coli poisoning and nearly lost her life. So it's just shocking that in this very same town where we know there are problems, that now over half of the people have contaminated wells, and their government isn't helping them. In fact, they had to sue their government to even get, a little bit of relief in a technically sufficient water pollution permit. And you would think there'd be some sort of governmental SWAT team. I'm going to zip a little bit, but one thing in the hearing, I have to say, it's what makes it all worth it. The citizens were listened to by the judge. They were able to give comments on the record. This is the cover of the Green Bay Press Gazette, the Wednesday of the hearing, full front page. And it was so great to see the people who fought for so long for public health and the rights of their families and their neighbors, that they were listened to. And it's hard and expensive. So this is just another link to a story. The Wisconsin Watch Org, the Wisconsin Center for Investigative Journalism, has done some great work on the CAFOs, and they covered the story pretty well. I'll get to this in just a second, but I just want to say again, it was wonderful to see citizens who spent so much time monitoring and calling the DNR and being ignored, and being good citizens and suffering the consequences of living near these things, to see them get their day in court. And we've spent tens of thousands of dollars on experts, laws, evidence-based advocacy, and you need that. And again, it's incredibly absurd that citizens in harm's way have to bring legal action against their own government just to have the law properly followed. But I'm so happy that there are people that are willing to do that they're willing to do what it takes, which is hard work and hard locally, and that they're willing to take. So Lynn Henning, this woman here, she is works with the Sierra Club, or has been a volunteer with the Sierra Club in Michigan, and is kind of the grandmother of citizen heroes of the CAFO watchdogs. And Lynn herself has lost lung capacity just by her many years of monitoring and being exposed to terrible air pollutants. Live near a CAFO, pretty much can't hang your laundry out for every single part of your life. The people in Kewaunee County, Kewaunee Cares, they started out by, they've got building a group of citizens. When Judy Tremmel's family had issues, their family was pretty much alone, and thank goodness that's changed. But from the 2 years we've been involved in this legal battle with folks up in Kewaunee County, we've seen the number of people grow, and in part by efforts like this, putting up billboards. They did an insert in their local paper. They hold community events. They hold chili suppers. I mean, and conversations like the one we're having tonight. It's really important for people to stand with those champions. Very, very easy to marginalize and ostracize people who are willing to stand up, but it's harder to do when all of us stand around them. And again, you don't have to be a hero, but you do need to stand with your neighbors. Here's the bill that the bills that are in the legislature, very likely to pass. Just an abomination that we would actually pass a law that keeps the DNR from using sound science to manage our drinking water. What are they thinking? So another great thing with technology, like what we're using tonight, are blogs. Here's just one example, a woman who has really done some great job. I encourage you to go look at this blog. There's a Kewaunee Cares blog. Lots of information out there, but it's a great way to share and for people to be heard. This isn't a comprehensive list, but here's some of the organizations that work for sustainable ag and to hold CAFOs accountable around the state. And these are all. You'll notice didn't put any big organizations here. These are really grassroots groups, and they're really on the front lines of all these issues, and CAFOs are no exception. And something I've started doing in talks is to try to just throw up some pictures here of some of the champions that do work every day. Again, not an exhaustive list, but some of the people that are, making life better in Wisconsin for all of us through using their voice and their time and their smarts. Again, stand with your neighbors. No matter what the issue is, one person standing alone is treated poorly, and it's very difficult. We need to stand with everyone. Vote with your fork. And just a tenet for all of us in any issue is looking out for the rights of future generations. Ordinary people like all of us, we're the most important group possible because we will not be corrupted by special interests or dirty money. We love our families and love those that aren't born yet, so we will stand up and we'll keep standing up. But citizens' voices do matter. It's not a platitude. And right now in Wisconsin, that's what we have, really, is citizen voices. When we go to questions here, I'm going to just pop back up to a map. So sorry if I make anybody dizzy going backwards, but I know we have some very knowledgeable people on the call, and so I sure hope we can hear from you here.
Well, thank you, Kim. That was really terrific. So consider the line open for questions. Again, go to the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, and you can type in the box and hit return. I just did that. Who owns these CAFOs is my question.
Oh, well, some of them call themselves family farms. It depends. These are large industries and are pretty leveraged with all kinds of debt and, investors and things like that. I think there are some of these companies that are, owned by family operations. But it's not a sustainable industry in many, many ways, and economically not sustainable as well as environmentally not sustainable. And can people see that if you go down to the lower left corner of your screen, there's a little thing that says type your message here, just hit return and we can see it. So here's a question, do the owners live on their CAFOs? Yes, some of them do. The folks that own the factory farm that we had our hearing over last week do live near their, near their facility. And they're good people. I mean, the community, it's hard for their neighbors who've grown up and gone through school with these folks to stand up. And that's one of the things that I admire most about citizens is that they're willing to do the hard personal things for our clean water. Here's another question from Ted and Judy. Our local farmer plows in the stuff as it is being spread. Is this better or not, or does it make a difference? They are supposed to. I think sometimes it's called knifing in, and that's supposed to control odor. And so it could be a good practice. The real trick is whether these, and we're talking about, I'm really referring to the large volumes of liquid manure as opposed to solid manure and at the scale of a normal farm. But the devil is in the details here. These nutrient management plans are a scientific regime of how much volume they can put in any particular place, and there's no monitoring of that. So this other this map, that's what these nutrient management plans show. So these dark orange and dark red areas, they're at full tilt. These places can't take any more manure, yet we're permitting new ones every day. And it does smell bad. It smells very bad. So 1,000 head of cattle. Yep. So that would meet they would need a permit and a nutrient management plan. So from Forrest, can you tell us some ways to prompt action from the DNR when violations are documented? Well, this is really tough. You can't find better people and smarter people than the folks up in Kewaunee County. And what they found is when they call the DNR with problems, that they started having to ask the DNR to put something in writing and send it to them to acknowledge their call. Because what we've heard from staff inside the DNR, they're being told not to write down when people call them. They're not supposed to be documenting the great number of citizen complaints in hot spots like around CAFOs. But there are ways to document, time and date stamps on your camera. There are some ways to document. One of the things that we've done with groups is do trainings in an area where there are problems and looking at the actual legal accountability in a permit and then gearing your monitoring program to what you can actually hold someone accountable to. So there are some very specific ways of documenting problems. And now, what about the poorly managed small operations? Even if organic, they dump their manure in streams and tributaries. Absolutely. There are small farms that are problems in Wisconsin. One thing I want to be sure to mention, we have kind of the best of worlds and the worst of worlds here in Wisconsin. We've got this exponentially growing factory farm sector, but we also are one of the leaders in the nation in sustainable agriculture and pasture-raised animals. So we do know there's other ways to do it, and manure is a very valuable a resource for soil fertility, but it's pretty different to be spreading solid manure as opposed to 100 million gallons from one facility of liquid manure that's got all kinds of other horrible toxins in it. Right, so this is a very good question. When Gordon Stevenson spoke at the Citizens Health Forum, he, I don't know if you noticed on that slide, but he talked about that the amount of manure generated just from the factory farms in Wisconsin right now is equal to what the human populations of Tokyo and Mexico City produce. And they are not required to treat this. And in a place like where there's karst topography or vulnerable soils that are prone to groundwater contamination, we're spreading hundreds of millions of gallons of this stuff on the ground. Yes, and on the Grassroots North Shore site, the slides will be available. It's Nancy. Can you give the website address again? I think it's grassrootsnorthshore.com. There. Oh, great. There it is. Grassrootsnorthshore.com. So the slides will be available there. This is a very good question. One of the permits we just reviewed, it was, I believe, a very large CAFO would use 70. Sorry, I should know this off the top of my head, but it was something like close to 100 million gallons a year. Like I said, there was one CAFO under the permitting process right now that would have 49 high-capacity wells, which I think is like 150 gallons of water per minute. And as you see, Nancy put up some information that you can go to the webinars page on Grassroots North Shore website, and there's a lot of other webinars there to look at as well. A lot of good information. This is a really great service that they figured out this way to get us together in a relatively easy way.
So are there additional questions for Kim? Don't be shy. Type them in.
And if there's anyone out there that has a particular problem or wants more information, on monitoring or how to document or how to deal with the DNR when they ignore you. You know, our office, let me click through. Sorry, I make you dizzy again here. You can contact me or contact us through our website. There you go, Midwest Environmental Advocates. And one of our attorneys, Jimmy Parra, has put together a really nice training for citizen scientists that are doing water monitoring to gear their work to legal accountability. If on the DNR website, there's information about water testing, but if you call your county public health department, they should have information about, you usually can go in and pick up testing kits. Boy, it's really important if you have a private well, you know, there's the E. coli and bacteria, but they're really high nitrate levels as well. I know I live in Dane County and we have a lot of problems with private wells and high nitrates, and especially if you have small children, that's a real problem. So if you have a private well, you know, please get it tested. And but your county public health department or your county conservationist can give you some information, and if you can't find that, please let me know. The liquid manure, there are these giant manure lagoons where the permit challenge we just worked for against, the capacity would be 76 million gallons a year. So the CAFOs are required to have storage for 180 days of manure, and because they're not supposed to spread on frozen and snow-covered ground and certain conditions, and so that those giant lagoons are there, and these animals are confined, so they use high volumes of water just to clean out these giant buildings where the animals are. So the lagoons have not only manure, and you know, they've got hormones and all the, you know, antibiotic resistant pathogens, and each of these manure lagoons is allowed to have 10% of industrial waste as part of it. So there could be all kinds of horrible toxins in the manure lagoon that's being spread on vulnerable ground. Yeah, and it should be treated. It's crazy. This factory farm that the citizens we are working with in Kewaunee County are fighting has the equivalent of 200,000 people's waste from one facility. And that, you know, people are told that their septic system is dangerous to groundwater from one family, but yet somebody can legally spread 100 million gallons of this stuff a year on the ground. So this was a quick buzz through. There are so many wonderful people who have been fighting this fight for a long time. You know, we should thank them all. If you live near a CAFO, you become an activist, and there are many, many good people around the state. Yeah, you would think we need some changes under the Clean Water Act. There are certain circumstances that could be considered a point source, but they're, you know, generally speaking, these are considered non-point runoff. And there's different regulations for the, as you can imagine, there are big facilities and feed pads and barns, and those production areas have different standards for controlling runoff than the nutrient management plans that deal with spreading the waste on farm ground. We just kind of scratched the surface. There's a lot of information out there. Please go to our website, and we've got Stacy Harbaugh, our communications person's got a lot of good information up on the Kewaunee County case that we just finished the hearing for, and there's a lot of good information out there.
Well, great. Thank you so much, Kim. This has been really terrific, and I've learned a lot. I hope other people have too. I hope everyone who was on the webinar will spread the word instead of the manure about the presentation and where you can go. You can go see the slides. By tomorrow, we'll have a link to the recording, so you can actually hear Kim give her presentation and answer the questions. And then, if you have further questions, get in touch with Midwest environmental advocates, and they will be sure to help you. So thanks, everyone, and good night.
Thank you.